I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Is his girlfriend Karen Reed the killer, or was his life taken by a fellow police officer? Here's the story. It was the most divisive trial of 2024, a case that caused confrontations inside the courtroom, outside the courthouse, and all over social media. Karen Reed is accused of running over her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, on purpose. Prosecutors charged her with murder. Then, a local video blogger and social media influencer covering the story transformed this case into something else. He is known as Turtle Boy, and he has tens of thousands of followers who all believe, based upon the evidence that they've seen, that Karen Reed is innocent and she was being framed by police. They mobilized and created the Free Karen Reed movement. And then this trial took on a life of its own. The first jury deadlocked, and now both sides are preparing for what many are calling the retrial of the century. There are so many aspects of this case that are very, very different. Something else that is taking place here. Karen Reed didn't testify in her first trial, but she did speak to the media and did speak in a documentary. Here are some of Karen Reed's comments made in the Discovery ID docuseries, Body in the Snow.
I did not drive my car into John, didn't reverse it. Did not hit John with my car.
Is there any chance this was an accident?
There is zero chance this was an accident. There was zero chance John was hit by a vehicle.
Significant. Now, there's a lot to that. There's the basic denial that I did not strike him with my car. But there was another part of that which really stuck out to me, which is the car was not put in reverse. It was not reversed. And that brings me to the first question in our investigation. Did Karen Reed put the SUV in reverse? Now, there may be different ways to interpret what she said there, but she said she did not reverse it. Like, the car was not put in reverse. Didn't hit R and put the foot on the gas to go backwards. And that was part of her denial of striking John O'Keefe. That, and there's no evidence that he was struck by a vehicle. But on top of it, she's clear there saying she didn't do it. She didn't put the car in reverse. How could she have hit him? Okay, let's get to the bottom of this. Joining me, Karen Reed supporter and creator of the Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed Facebook page, Nick Rocco, is with us. And also joining us, the author of the book, Storm of Suspicion, the Karen Reed trial, Kevin Lenahan, is joining us as well. Great to have you both here. Nick, let me start with you. Did I interpret that incorrectly, where she's saying the car is not put in reverse? Is that at any time? Is that just put in reverse and struck him? To me, it's not 1,000% clear what she's saying there.
Well, we know she didn't put the car in reverse at 34 Fairview Road and backed up into John going 24 miles per hour. The only place that she actually did reverse was when she passed 34 Fairview Road and had to do a three-point turn because she missed the street. So if we're going to look at the facts of the case and Trooper Paul's testimony, key cycle 1162 would have been when she had struck John O'Keefe with her vehicle. But if you actually look at all the key cycles, that key cycle 1162 was when the tow driver backed out of the vehicle in Dighton. So when you actually look at that video, you can see the back tires spinning really fast in this snow, as if the car was stuck in the snow. So the way that it's going to measure the speed and the tire rotation is going to almost register at 24 miles per hour. It's kind of like being stuck in the mud, right? So when the tires are rotating really fast, it's measuring speed and distance. That's where they're going to get 24 miles per hour. But if we're just looking at testimony in facts of the case, key cycle 1162 was when the vehicle was backed out of Karen's driveway. So they have it wrong. That key cycle is 100% wrong. and they're going to have to come up with a new excuse in this next trial for that.
All right, and I think what Nick is talking about, Kevin, here is this testimony from Trooper Paul. Let's take a listen.
So the vehicle was traveling in reverse along the southbound travel lane, traveling north. The vehicle traveled up to 24 miles per hour and approximately 62 feet. The right rear of the Lexus struck the pedestrian John O'Keefe. Mr. O'Keefe was projected forward and to the left along the front yard of 34 Fairview Road.
All right, Kevin, what are your thoughts about this 24 miles per hour in reverse?
Yeah, so first I'll address the key cycles thing. Trooper Paul, Nick is correct. It didn't seem to have a very accurate understanding of the key cycles, and this needs to be explained better in the second trial. But we can go to, so in the trial, Trooper Paul is the one who introduced us to the vehicle data. Trooper Garino, an entirely separate trooper, introduced us to the phone data. He's the one that was the forensic phone expert that did the extractions on John's phone. And the key thing that shows that there's no doubt that this is what happened, and it couldn't have been manufactured in any way by the state police because they didn't even share with each other. Trooper Paul did not have Garino's information on the phone, and Trooper Garino did not have the vehicle data. So what we know is that Karen missed the turn, as Nick just said, going left onto Fairview. And to correct for that, she does a three-point turn. This is with John in the car. And that three-point turn shows up in the vehicle data. 8 minutes and 4 seconds after that three-point turn is the next event in the data, and it's when she goes backwards at 24 miles per hour for several seconds, for an estimate of at least 60 or 70 feet. 4 seconds into that data is what Trooper Paul described as the telltale signs of a pedestrian strike. Now, we know what time the three-point turn was based on John's phone data, that it was around 12:24:02. And so if you go 8 minutes and 8 seconds after that, that would put the pedestrian collision at 12:32 and say around 10 or 12 seconds. This is plus or minus 3 or 4 seconds. And John's phone moved for the very last time at 12:32, 16 seconds. So just a few seconds after that. There was no way the troopers could have manufactured this, or even because they didn't even know about that correlation between John's phone and the vehicle data.
You know, the 24 miles per hour really stuck out to me. And I remember we went over to 34 Fairview, and I got in the car and I was trying to back it up, and I was trying to go at 24 miles an hour, but I didn't feel safe doing it. Take a look at what we did.
Yeah.
All right, what I'm going to do is drive 24 miles an hour, just to give you an idea of how fast that is over the course of 60 feet, which isn't that far. Here we go. I'm now going 26 miles an hour, but it took me a while to get that fast. And that's going forward. And that's I don't know how you go 24 miles an hour backwards. Like it seems like you almost have to pin it to do that, Nick.
Because you don't. I mean, it's almost impossible. And even if you can get the vehicle to 24 miles per hour, just to strike a body, never mind a body, an elbow right on the money is almost impossible. I mean, you'd have to be some type of professional driver to be able to do this. You know, after a few drinks, it's snowing outside. There's just absolutely no way she was capable of doing such a thing like that. So, I mean, a lot of people have tried this theory, Vinny, yourself included. You know it's impossible. I mean, driving 24 miles per hour forwards is fast enough. Try doing it in reverse, especially when the road curves a little bit too. She probably, if she had hit John, would have been up on the curb and on the grass a little bit there, and there probably would have been tire marks in the dirt or something like that, but there's no evidence of anything.
Kevin, let's take a look at the investigators in the car going 24 miles an hour backwards. I think we have video of that. So I'm trying to understand, Kevin, the theory here for her to drive that far, 24 miles an hour. Is she driving away and then changes her mind and decides to murder him? or did she drive away so she could pick up enough speed to run him over? What is the prosecution's working theory on why she was driving away and then pinned it and goes 24 miles an hour backwards?
Well, it might be the case that we never know for sure exactly what she intended to do or what she was trying to do. What you just showed with the difficulty of driving that way, 24 miles per hour in reverse, actually strengthens the argument for second-degree murder. Because as you can see, driving 24 miles per hour in reverse for any length of time is terrifying. And it's reckless. And that's the intent part of second-degree murder. She never should have done something like that. But there is no way to manufacture this data. This data is what it is. It's bulletproof. There's no way you could have brought in the CIA to manufacture this because of that correlation with John's phone. So there's no way that they could have, for instance, taken it back to the parking lot and driven it 24 miles an hour and said, oh, this is how we did to try to make it seem like Karen did this. There's just no way around it.
And Nick, looking at the 24 miles an hour here, and I understand the argument that was made about when you believe the turn was, but it seems if the jury believes the car's going 24 miles an hour backwards, at whatever point it is done, it doesn't seem like that becomes accidental. It seems very purposeful to even if you're doing a three-point turn and you go 24 miles an hour in that three-point turn, it seems like you're almost in a state of agitation or you're angry or there's something going on to have that level of speed going backwards. Even if it's during an actual three-point turn, like it would almost be like you're in an argument, you're angry, or you're angry that you missed the turn, and then you sort of, to back it up, you pin it to go that fast. It doesn't seem like that's something that can be done accidentally.
Right, and that's a good point. That's why they found her 12-0 not guilty on second-degree murder, because they didn't believe that she threw her car in reverse at 24 miles per hour and intentionally did this. So that's really all there is to say about that, and I'm sure this jury coming up is also going to look at this and be like, this is not second-degree murder. If the state, I'm pretty sure I said this before, if the state was smart and they actually really wanted to get Karen Read to be found guilty on something, they wouldn't go for second-degree murder. They have a better chance at manslaughter, saying, oh, this was an accident and you know, she backed up and didn't mean to hit him. But they don't. They're sticking to their guns because they have to at this point. The DA and everyone else in Norfolk County, they're so dug in this cover-up that they have to stick to what they've said happened from the get-go.
Yeah, Nick Rocco getting good at TV now, Kevin, because he just teed up the next segment for us. You guys are going to stick around for later on in the program, but coming up next, why is this a murder case?
The evidence shows that she didn't hit him.
Lori Daybell.
Already convicted for the murders of her children.
Doomsday Cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
She really thinks she's equipped to try this case.
She appears very sure of herself.
I have real trial experience.
It's going to be a strange trial. We'll see how it plays out.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
With certain.
The evidence shows that she didn't hit him. I've said in the past that his injuries are not consistent with being hit by a vehicle. And by the way, the Lexus taillight braking, coming in contact with a human being and not a hard surface, makes no sense to me. I think it's going to make no sense to a jury.
That's David Yannetti speaking early on about the case, and you can tell that's a little bit older, that clip. But let's go back in time a little bit. Like this is a murder trial, but take a look at the original charges when Karen Read was first arrested. February 1st, 2022, arrested on charges of manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene of a deadly crash. These were the original headlines. And we talked about, oh, was this an accident? Oh, was she drinking? Is this a driving under the influence kind of case? But then everything changed. And unlike these original charges, what we're talking about now is a murder trial, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Why is this a murder case? What turned this into a murder? Joining me, Massachusetts criminal defense attorney Joseph Krowski Jr. and Massachusetts trial attorney who served as special counsel to Johnny Depp in his defamation case, Wayne Dennison, also with us. All right, Joseph, I think this is an important question. Like, why is this a murder case?
Well, in Massachusetts, and we've discussed this before, this is not unprecedented. Just last year down in this county, Plymouth County, Massachusetts, an individual for a manslaughter, he was originally charged with manslaughter OUI. It went to the grand jury. The charges were upped to second-degree murder, and he was actually convicted and is now serving a life sentence. And the facts in that case is that he was drinking and driving, collided with a family after driving recklessly, killing a young female. I think what happened here is Karen Reed was originally charged in the district court. They had preliminary information, enough to establish probable cause for manslaughter OUI. But then when they started to do the investigation and they were able to obtain the data, they were able to obtain the phone messages and other additional supplemental information, in their estimation and in their mind, they had enough to go forward with a murder case, and she was indicted by a grand jury. I'll say one more thing, and I've told you this before, in Massachusetts, and it is unnerving, second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter are perilously close to one another. The third prong of malice of second-degree murder does not require an intent to kill. It just requires a showing that there's a plain and strong likelihood that death might result from your actions. Conversely, in involuntary manslaughter, is a showing required that there is a high degree of likelihood that serious bodily injury might result. Now, you're a lawyer. You try to parse the difference and distinguish those two.
Is there a difference? Is there? I think we need some clarification here. Is there a difference when you talk about the intent? She does have to intend to hit him, even though she doesn't intend to kill him, right? For murder?
No, she has to. No, under second-degree murder, she has to intend to do the act. So I think what probably happened here is they were able to get
putting your car in reverse?
Well, dropping your boyfriend off and then not having any obstruction to leaving and backing up 60 feet at 24 miles an hour at the same exact point where his shoe was found, where parts of the taillight are found, and where his body is found. That's not a typical pedestrian strike where you're driving forward and clip someone. That looks like an intentional act. But again, and I'm not taking
I would argue, though, driving forward is more intentional. You can see where you're going. Before we run out of time, though, we got to get to Wayne, Joseph.
Sure.
We got to get to Wayne. Wayne, why is this a murder case?
They overcharged Karen Reed in order to hope to elicit some level of a plea agreement. And when they didn't get a plea agreement, they were stuck with these claims that appear to have been soundly rejected by the previous jury. Whether she intended to kill him is going to be a very difficult row to hoe for this prosecution. And as Joseph said, they're not going to try to light that box. They're just going to say she acted in a way that she knew might have killed him.
All right, Joseph, let me button this up with you. I want to be crystal clear. You said intended the act, but what is the act? Is the act striking him with a car, or is the act putting the car in reverse? Is the act putting the car in reverse at 24 miles an hour? What is the act that is intended here, allegedly?
Well, I think it's the aggregate of factors, right? The act is, well, you're angry and you're intoxicated, backing up.
Those are adjectives. Those are adjectives. Those aren't acts.
Well, those are reasonable conclusions, but they're part of the analysis. The act is backing up a 6,000-pound vehicle 60 feet in the exact direction of where John O'Keefe was, who you had just dropped off, who had just gotten out of your car. And I think that there is a logical, reasonable inference that you backed up 60 feet. that your demeanor and your state of mind was one of rage.
Is she guilty if
I'm
she
just
didn't see
saying
him? Is she guilty if she didn't see him?
Look, there's no right or wrong answer to any of those questions. But yes, I mean, look, it does cut perilously close to manslaughter, but there is a pathway there.
Drivers beware in Massachusetts, Wayne Dennison. This is scary stuff.
Well, drivers beware, but not all drivers back up 60 feet, 24 miles an hour in the exact direction of where they just dropped someone off after drinking 8 shots of vodka.
Well, I get that part. The drinking and driving is a problem. Everybody was doing it. Wayne, so you brought up an interesting point, Wayne, which is based upon what we've heard from the jurors who have spoken out, murder was knocked out of the box in this case. They were talking about count 2, which is what the original case was all about. And should this case be a murder case or should this case be a manslaughter case?
It should be a manslaughter case. She was charged with murder. It gives the jury an opportunity to compromise on still a very serious crime. But this should not have been a murder case, and I've taken the position from the very beginning that this case was overcharged.
All right, Joseph Krowski, Wayne Dennison are going to stay with us. They know this stuff inside out, folks. Coming up next, when was Karen Reed's tail light cracked? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. This trial of his accused killer, Karen Reed, has turned into the biggest case in that courthouse since the trial of Sacco and Vanzetti. Here's the story. Karen Reed was a college professor living a relatively normal life in Massachusetts. Then one snowy night in a town called Canton, her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, ended up dead on the front lawn of another Boston police officer. Karen Reed was charged with this murder. Prosecutors say she purposely ran him over with her SUV. But Karen Reed has literally proclaimed her innocence on the courthouse steps and has thousands and thousands of supporters in Massachusetts and around the country who all believe she is innocent and is being framed by law enforcement. The jury deadlocked in the first trial, and now Karen Reed and prosecutors are getting ready for the retrial of the century. So there's a lot of parts of this trial that make it difficult to really understand anything super clearly, including some of the circumstances and some of the videos. The circumstances, like, it all comes to, like, she's got a nice Lexus SUV, but the tail light is cracked. But it's not 100% clear how and when it was cracked. Because the morning after she allegedly ran over John O'Keefe, she's backing the car out at John O'Keefe's house. And we have that video. And look, watch, as she stops, it seemingly hits a car behind it. And as it pulls away, there's video of the right tail light. So what does that video reveal? Is that consistent with what it looked like later on when prosecutors took a picture of it as evidence against Karen Reed? Is it consistent with all the broken pieces that were found allegedly at the scene? Or was it partially cracked when she backed it up and then cracked later on by law enforcement who are setting her up for all of this? Like, nothing in this case is 100% clear. And this is probably one of the most important issues for that jury. And it's the next question in our investigation. When was Karen Reed's tail light cracked? When was it cracked? And even the question isn't clear, like fully cracked, half cracked. It's tough. It's really tough to really nail down any fact in this case, which is a challenge for prosecutors ultimately because they have the burden. Joining me, Karen Reed supporter, creator of the Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed Facebook page, Nick Rocco, and the author of the book Storm of Suspicion, The Karen Reed Trial, Kevin Lenahan. Okay, this one is taking on a life of its own. Let's go back to that video I just showed. Nick, you look at that video. What do you see in the backing up, and what do you see in the car pulling away?
Well, I see her hitting John's car, and actually one of the only unbiased person to talk about her taillight that actually saw the taillight was Officer Barrows from the Dayton Police Department when he saw her vehicle in Dayton in the driveway of her parents, right? So he said there's a piece missing and it's not completely damaged. Now, during Yuri Buchanan's testimony, Adam Lally, right here, Adam Lally shows a picture or a video on the left-hand side of Karen Reed's vehicle before the night in question. When you look at all these pictures right here, they're the same as when she left John's driveway, other than a small piece missing. So how, when the Massachusetts State Police, how does it look like that when before she allegedly struck John O'Keefe and the morning after she struck John O'Keefe, they look the exact same? You cannot look at these pictures and tell me that they're different. The only difference is when the Mass State Police took custody of it, there's more taillight missing.
Let's take a listen, Kevin, to some of that testimony from two members of law enforcement about the taillight and what they saw and what they observed.
We learned that the vehicle was registered to the defendant.
And as you're going by this vehicle, what, if any, observations did you make of the vehicle as you were walking past it toward the home?
I observed a damaged rear right taillight fixture on the vehicle from my vantage point. I also told Trooper Proctor to approach the vehicle closer and confirm what I was seeing, which he did.
At some point, did you make any observations of the right rear part of that Lexus SUV?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you observe about that area of the vehicle?
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked, and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
All right, Kevin. So when was Karen Reed's taillight cracked?
Well, I'll tell you who does say very authoritatively that the taillight was missing pieces. Karen Reed. Amazingly, in an interview with Boston Magazine reporter Gretchen Voss, in which all three of her attorneys were present, at least I don't know how many attorneys she has now, but the ones back then, she told Gretchen Voss a story about how at 5:45 in the morning, when she showed her taillight to Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe. And they described the taillight the same way too. But Karen Reed vividly describes, and you're going to hear this audio in court, that the taillight was missing pieces, bulbs were exposed. She was worried it would affect the functionality of her car. In fact, she said, and this is why she told the story, that she plucked a piece of taillight out at that moment and dropped it in the driveway. And that's why she told the story, because the state police searched that driveway days later. And so she was trying to make the case that they lied because they didn't find the piece that she dropped there. But of course, that driveway was snow-blowed very heavy after 2 feet of snow had fallen. So that taillight probably went missing. But the taillight was clearly broken by so many different, Kerry Roberts testified that it was broken in missing pieces when she saw it at 5:30, 5:45. And she not only said that when she was shown a picture by Prosecutor Lally of the taillight later on the Sally report, she shows, yes, that's what I saw. And the defense chose not to question her. They didn't cross-examine her. So they've accepted her statement. So there's really no question that the taillight is missing pieces. And Officer Barrios there described it very accurately. If you look at that taillight, it's largely intact. It's only missing pieces on the corner. So there really isn't a mystery here. The taillight was missing pieces, and it was missing. It's somewhat clear that it's missing pieces at 5:08 when she pulls out, too.
Let's take a look at the Sallyport video, my favorite video of all the videos in this case. Let's take a look. And what we've done here is we've put everything on the correct side. Nick, what's the significance of this video?
We're not even looking at the damaged taillight here. Well, no, actually, yeah. So, well, this is flipped around the correct way. So initially, yeah, when they showed it originally, they were showing us the driver's side taillight.
Yeah. The new trial is going to be shown this way. I think the new jury will see it this way.
Yeah, so
right?
you have everybody right now. Everyone's behind the taillight right there. When Yuri Buchanan says he sees the taillight damaged and he needed Proctor to get a closer look, if that taillight was completely missing all the red pieces, you don't need to get a closer look to see all the red missing. And the other thing, too, is Karen Reed may have said that, you know, the bulb was sticking out, or but there's actually no bulbs in this type of taillight. It's all LED lights. So she did say, and Kerry Roberts did say, that there was pieces missing. But what Kevin didn't say was when the taillight broke, which he didn't say it was when she struck John O'Keefe. It broke or it cracked when she backed into John's car. And you have other people like Officer Barrows, who is now not a witness for the Commonwealth, saying that only a piece was missing. So you cannot have her vehicle taillight looking one way before the incident, then the morning of the incident, and then now like this, that the Massachusetts State Police took it. All of that should have been read. So to say that one piece is missing in that picture is just a lie. All of the red pieces are missing.
Kevin Lenahan, your thoughts about the Sally Port video?
Well, you know, it's just so many. What these people think it's unusual that the troopers are looking at the only part of the car that's damaged. It's just baffling to me why that would be mystifying to them. Of course, they're going to be looking at that. This is the murder weapon, right? So, you know, it's established by Karen's own words that the taillight is badly damaged and missing pieces at 5:45. It's also that's further corroborated by Kerry Roberts' testimony, which is not challenged. That's corroborated by Jen McCabe's testimony. You can see in the vehicle when it backs up into John's Traverse, it's like at 1 or 2 miles an hour, it barely nudges it. There's no way that did any damage. You don't see any pieces falling in the fresh snow there. So, you know, we don't have video of Karen striking John, but the taillight pieces are found in a debris field near where John was found, and well, we know what Karen's Lexus was all day. It was either parked in John's driveway under ring surveillance, or parked in her parents' house in Dighton under camera surveillance, or she was in it. So by the time the car got back to the Sally Port in Canton, the state police CERT team was already set up and starting to shovel out a tiny excavation area the size of about 2 parking spaces. And that's a 7-man CERT team. So there was no time in the timeline to tamper with that vehicle and bury those pieces. This is an easy case.
All right, Kevin Lenahan, Nick Rocco, thank you as always for tonight. And pretty soon, all of us will be up there in Massachusetts, and we'll do this in person. Don't worry about it. We will do this in person. Thanks so much, guys. We've got more to get to, still to come. Let's talk about Michael Proctor, Trooper Michael Proctor. Who will he help more in this case?
Did you have an agenda?
Objection.
Today, cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her 4th husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings. Only on Court TV.
I'm confessing to a murder. I did it. I'm your worst nightmare, David.
Interview with a Killer. New season premieres Sunday at 8. Only on Court TV.
Did you have an agenda?
Objection.
Your narrative was she hit him with a car. You get to talk about her leaky balloon knot, right?
Objection.
Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in the case, being cross-examined by Alan Jackson. Such a big moment in that first trial. Such an important witness in that first trial. Let's go back and take a look at it, because he provided some significant evidence for prosecutors, but there was some damage done on cross-examination. Take a look.
When you're coming up the driveway and you're passing by the defendant's vehicle, you mentioned some damage that you observed to the right rear passenger side area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what it was specifically that you observed as far as damage to that area of the vehicle?
Yeah, the right rear tail light had such large pieces missing from it. We located a black drinking straw consistent with the one seen in the waterfall video of Mr. O'Keefe walking out of the bar holding the glass. We located his hat that had the American flag that was deep underneath the snow. As we were digging, we discovered that. We further discovered other pieces of plastic as well. So these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
Her assessment, personal assessment, that Karen Reed had struck this officer with a car, gave you license to call her a
Objection.
right?
Based on the evidence, sir, my motions got the best of me, so it was in poor taste. Yes, it was inappropriate, juvenile, but it was my motions had gotten the best of me.
Sir, you had an agenda from moment one, did you not?
Objection.
And now at this point, Trooper Proctor has officially been dismissed from the Massachusetts State Police. So that brings us to the next question in our investigation with this crucial witness. Who will Trooper Proctor help more? Will be the prosecution or defense at this point in this trial? Here with us, Massachusetts criminal defense attorney Joseph Krowski Jr. and Massachusetts trial attorney, served as special trial counsel to Johnny Depp in his defamation case, Wayne Dennison. Wayne, what are your thoughts about Trooper Proctor on that witness stand? Who does he help more?
I think ultimately he will end up helping the prosecution more. He's going to be better prepared. They will try to blunt some of the horrible text messages and some of the other activity in which he engaged. And I think ultimately, although they're going to have to try again to put him on trial, you really cannot go in and witness hammer and tong in front of a jury unless and until they get to a point where the jury's going to be comfortable with that. And I think that the prosecution is going to preview this sufficiently that he will ultimately be a helpful prosecution witness.
Joseph, what are your thoughts about Proctor and his role in the retrial? You know, in that first case, to me, I almost felt like the defense sort of shifted and sort of pivoted, and it became much more about Trooper Proctor than the hose long to die in the cold, alleged Google search, the McCabe's, the Alberts. To me, he became the focal point of the defense. So in this retrial, who do you think he helps more?
Well, look, it's probably a net gain for the defense in that we expect our law enforcement to be held to a higher standard, and it's certainly never a great look when the lead investigator has been discharged. But to Wayne's point, it's like a heavyweight prize fight. It's usually never as good the second time around. And, you know, Alan Jackson was bombastic and he made his points, but I don't think he left anything in reserve. So Trooper Proctor is prepared and knows everything that they're going to ask him. And as vetted as he was, certainly it showed a lot of felicitous, unprofessional conduct in the texting, but there was no smoking gun to show that he had planted any evidence or he had engaged in any misconduct. And I think that was also bolstered by some of the commentary coming out from the jurors. I know you had one juror that said that the jury didn't buy the theory that he had planted evidence or that there was a conspiracy or a cover-up. He probably helps the defense more as it relates to the murder charge than it does to the OUI-related manslaughter charge.
So, Wayne, what role does he's been dismissed and no longer works for the Massachusetts State Police. What role does that play in this second trial? I mean, do you think it impacts Proctor at all? Does he feel like less committed to the prosecution or more committed because this is the case that resulted in him losing his job?
This is his opportunity to at least partially redeem himself. And I think he's going to be more committed to being as good a witness as he possibly can be. Ultimately, I think that he's going to be more committed to trying to do a better job at testifying and to be a better witness for the prosecution than he previously was.
Joseph, what's the temperature up there in Massachusetts these days for law enforcement? Are people more skeptical these days? Because I've seen that in some jurisdictions around the country, that there's a heightened sense or a lack of trust. Like there was a time where a police officer testified, he took him at his word for everything. But now times have changed a little bit in some places. How about in Massachusetts, and how about in the case of a trooper who was dismissed?
So look, this is a nationwide problem, right? Police misconduct, police officers not following applicable standards, police engaging in all kinds of malfeasance. I'm just a little surprised that this is the case that it took to highlight it. But the temperature is very hot. The temperature is hot in Massachusetts. People, and look, it's a healthy thing for citizens to question law enforcement. And I think that ultimately that makes law enforcement do a better job. Trooper Proctor, I'm sure that he thought these texts would never see the light of day, but the fact is that he did write those texts to other officers, and we expect our officers to be unfettered by any type of bias. I will say that, again, there is racial undertones to the fact that it took a white suburban female to kind of highlight problems that young men of color have been screaming from the rooftops for decades in Boston and Massachusetts and all over this country.
Let me ask you, Wayne, do you think this jury is going to say, listen, in order for me to convict Karen Read, I need to believe Trooper Proctor beyond a reasonable doubt?
No, I don't think that they're going to have to base their decision entirely on Trooper Proctor. You can get to a conviction, I think not on the murder charge, but you can get to a conviction on the manslaughter charge, disregarding Proctor altogether and deeming him irrelevant to this proceeding.
It's going to be fascinating to see how all this goes down, you know? A lot of people say that the rematch is difficult, but when you look at Frazier Ali, that second fight just as good as the first fight. So Joseph Krowski Jr., Wayne Dennison, I just aged myself by referencing that fight, by the way.
I am in Brockton, the home of Marvin Hagler and Rocky Marciano, as
there you go.
Know. The fight capital of the world.
And he beat Joe Louis. All right, thanks so much, guys. The retrial, it's going to be different. Obviously, prosecutors have a new voice with a new lead prosecutor, but I think we may have some differences with the defense case as well. But I don't think those differences will be known until the trial gets underway, because this defense team is anything but predictable. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.